now. She just pressed the button. So for those on the recording, you can check out the chat to know that this recording was supported as well. So here we are. We've created this amazing workspace. So all of us have been in here for a couple of weeks now, and we are wearing face coverings. So I'm just following our parameters, even when we're in our own spaces, because people come in to visit me or to meet with me. I'm also protecting the air quality in the space as well. So I'd love to not be talking to you with a mask, but as you know, the teachers are doing the same thing. So we're all in this together. It's been great to see this first small group of children in the building. It's really helped the teachers that have children to be able to do their work, and the teachers that have just a few children in their space so they can be practicing, giving lessons, some of them with them in the room or attending lessons. So that's been awesome. We're really working hard to try to share information consistently. So if you haven't read the emails over the past couple of weeks, I really encourage you to go back and do that, because this probably won't replace all of that information, but we've tried to give it to you in lots of different ways and have a way for you to come online and learn from other people and ask questions as well. I've been on so many webinars over the past 4 months, and I was on one this morning. I learned something new or something changes every single time. And so then we try to see what's important and how we put that information into play. We are constantly adjusting our parameters and how we're going to do contact tracing by all the new information that's coming from the state. So I'm happy to get into that more if people want to hear more about that. But it's most certainly a process. As many of you may already know, the numbers in our county, in Clark County, have been going up. There was a slight receding over the past week, so we're hoping that's a trend. And but they've been hovering right about 10% from the state dashboard. Locally, Floyd County has identified 8%. They do their tracking of those percentages of positivity over a 7-day average differently than the state does. So their number's always a little lower than what the state number is. So we look at all of those pieces. A lot of times families will say, well, what is the number you're looking for? What should I know? And I'm like, we don't have a number. You might have heard Dr. Fauci say recently that those schools between 5 and 10% who are in the yellow, they should proceed with caution. If you're over 10%, you probably not be going back to school. Everyone has a different opinion over that. Some people think if you're over 5%, Dr. Harris, who I talk to weekly and text with regularly, and I think he has a really good point that we have to look at more than just the percentages. We have to look at what happened if there was a big wedding and 80 people went to that wedding and 30 of them were COVID positive. That doesn't mean that our whole county or our whole region is seeing a huge uptick. It was just that one group of people. So we have to look at things in context as well. So I've got great partners here. I've talked to, Dr. Fred Schneider at Long Beach County. We communicate weekly as well. They opened kind of full throttle. Their teams, their high school, middle school programs were on a hybrid schedule. Their elementary is kind of full go. And they had 3 people show up positive on the first day of school. And so there's lots of reasons for that. And we'll be sending out lots of more information before we have that first day for the FSP kiddos on August 24th. But I'm hopeful that number is going to stick, and I'm hopeful that our numbers keep receding so we could be at a place where we don't have to start sending a whole lot of people home. So that's our goal, is when they get here, we start strong and we continue. So I'm really looking forward to that. Let me give you a couple more things, then we'll take questions. So if you have some questions, you can start putting them in the chat now. From a few families that I've been talking with recently, there's kind of a common thread, so I thought I'd talk about that for a minute. And that is, and some of you might be thinking this in a month or so, but my child doesn't work well off campus, and so you're worried, and you don't know how to support that, and they need to be at school. And you didn't get into the FSP, or you're on the wait list for the FSP, and as a staff, we spent a lot of time together, mostly like this, but all in the building together. And, the biggest thing that we were focused on is what opportunities we're going to have this year. And so I really encourage you to look at this as an opportunity for your family. And it really is, like I was just kind of thinking about, for most of us as adults, we have to do some of this, like virtual stuff, whether it's like this, or whether we have to do a webinar at work, or whether we have to go research something. Like those are all like independent learning things. And that's all this is, right? There's a part of being at school here where you do synchronous, which means like a teacher or an adult or another learner is teaching you something directly and in real time. And then there's times you're doing kind of independent learning, and that's asynchronous. And so as you can tell from all of our wording, we got rid of the words virtual and e-learning because people feel like it's like homeschooling. And we did a reboot and said, this is off-campus instruction, and it's similar to what they do on campus. It's just that they're home. And so, we have to, as a part of that prepared environment, think about like, what do we do to prepare the environment at home for our child to be successful? And so for some families, they've said like, we've came up with a family plan. We're no longer having the TV on during the day, or whatever those pieces are to make an environment conducive to learning at home. I'm sure you've already been doing asynchronous, which means like independent learning with your child at home. Like you created a chore list together, or if they were searching for a job, those are things they're doing independently. Making vacation or travel plans, they're having to research something and do it independently. No one's walking them through the process. So our kids have had lots of practice with asynchronous types of learning. And so we just encourage you to keep doing that. And if they start to get bogged down, or they feel like they're a victim in this situation, or they feel frustrated, which it was going to happen this year. Frustration is not a bad thing. Like how are we going to help them to become more resilient during this time? So anyway, rarely do we get to sit in front of an instructor to learn how to use maybe a new high energy washing machine. We have to figure those things out asynchronously. And so let's help our children to figure out to do that too. My daughter they just rented a house in Champaign, Illinois, and they had a high energy washing machine. I had no idea what to do with a high energy washing machine. I wish someone came over and gave me a synchronous lesson on it, but I didn't have that option. So that was my kind of task to help them to learn how to use it. And then it flooded water all over the family room. So I learned from that I need to do, clean a filter that I didn't know was there before we started the washing machine. So please reach out. 2 years ago, all of our teaching staff did a full staff-wide coaching workshop for 2 days. And so we are really, we want to help, and we've got ideas, and we can help, through like a coaching. Sometimes you coach us on your child, sometimes we coach you. And so please don't hesitate reaching out. As you know, we've had 29, almost half of our staff that have met regularly almost every single week since May to kind of design our reentry plans. We've had another group do that for extended learning. And, so we made some changes in the face coverings. And so I'm curious if anyone has questions about that or if that made sense. But, as we learn more, we have to adjust. And the way I feel about it is that, these guys are working with your children every day in groups of 15 or so, and they are the ones that need to feel the safest. And so if people are coming on campus, we need to support them feeling supported and safe. And maybe some of you saw the new Duke University study on face masks. If you didn't, that'd be a good thing to look up. It's some pretty neat research. And so we'll continue to watch, listen, learn, and or adjust to make, this year the best ever. So, all right, I'm anxious to hear what you have to say. What questions, or how can we help?
Okay, Barbara. So the first one kind of applies to what you just said, but maybe you can speak more directly to young learners who are having trouble staying focused on tasks, and then parents who also need to be working. And I'm also going to encourage this parent to email you directly because there's a question about special needs. So feel free to always email those directly to Barbara, but if you can just talk a little bit about younger learners.
Yes, I've been watching. We have about 5 or so children in each early ed environment right now. And so I've been watching to see how they're doing. And so, some are wearing shields, some are wearing face masks, some are moving from shields to face masks. And so, our goal is to help them to learn to wear a face mask. And but while they're learning, they have a face shield as well. We have enough for all the early ed learners that are going to be on campus. They're very nice, they're very sturdy, and they fit their faces. And so I really haven't noticed, in both situations, kids are just figuring it out. There was a kiddo that there was a mirror. Go ahead.
Sorry, Barbara. I think this was actually talking about the ones that are still home, trying to support and helping them focusing and doing their lessons online.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, and so, I would first encourage families to kind of back up and think just about what does your environment look like without them doing school. I think that's probably a good place to start. And what kind of prepared environment would be helpful? And so is there a place for them to go take a break and have a snack, for instance, independently? Is there a way for them to do toileting and wash their hands independently? Is there a place for them to have kind of a nice space to just cuddle up with some books and, whether they're reading yet or they're picture books. And so making sure that there are some independent spaces, and this could take time, and so you could take little steps at a time. But if home for some of us was, maybe a space that our child was for 2 hours a day with us, and so we didn't really have all of that set up because we didn't really need that because they were at here most of the time. And so when they went to bed around 7 o'clock. So now it's just like rethinking if your child's like right beside you, all of those things take time and practice just to set up new parameters and ways of being. Sometimes I think we just want to, things have changed. Here you go. You've got work to do for your school. I've got to do my work, and it takes time. And so starting really small and making this a place that they recognize as their environment and a place for them to do some of the learning activities. I've looked at most of the early ed's classrooms and resources, and it gives some great ideas. There's some great videos about how to just that independent, like Montessori at home kind of thing. So most certainly, if you want to email me directly, I can give you lots of ideas for just Montessori at home, especially for that early ed. But for all children, I would really think about, if they were only there a few hours a day, now we need to think about this differently because we all get into patterns at our own homes as well.
Okay. We had a couple questions about face coverings. Can you discuss face coverings specifically for early ed? I'm trying to see if I can wrap some of these other face covering questions into that. And then there was another one kind of about, will staff be empowered to ask and remind other adults and learners to wear masks correctly? And she said they were struggling with covering noses for younger learners. So those kind of relate.
Yes, I shared a little bit about the early ed piece of that. So I'll kind of leave that there for now. And please let me know if you have more questions. But the staff, what I've seen is fantastic. In a sense that they're showing them how to fold it. And we've given all of the children a lanyard to clip these on so they can do that individually. So you see that Melissa's showing you that right now. So it's just kind of like a practical living thing. And then they would do this again. You're right. Sometimes they fall down. The best I've seen are the little ones that you can either tie a knot or you can put a bead or something in here to let it get smaller for smaller faces. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. And so, did I answer all those, Melissa?
I think so. If you have follow-up questions, feel free to put those in the chat. Somebody was asking about specific scientific studies we're using in order to make decisions about face covering specifically, and also the 12-foot rule. And just so you know, Hannigan did link the CDC guidelines on face coverings in the chat, Barbara. So that's there. That's a resource, certainly. And I asked her if she could look up that Duke link, but that isn't in the chat yet. We'll try to get that in the chat. And then if you have anything to add.
Yeah, when I shared this with the reopening committee, Notre Dame did some explicit research as well as looked at others. They are not actually allowing face shields on campus at all because of this research. And I read all the pieces of that. And that made sense. We already had staff that was concerned because the CDC, for instance, does not suggest that face shields should be a substitute for face masks. And the Duke study, specifically talks about like the fleece gaiters, for instance. They say it is worse to wear the fleece gaiter than it is to wear anything at all. So it's better not to wear anything, in a sense. So there is that whole notion of face masks. Most certainly anything is better than nothing. And so I think some of the things that we're learning, and we have to look at it all critically for sure. And we're not planning, we don't have any changes for that piece right now. But we're really encouraging families to show their children, work with them about how things get through their face covering as well.
Someone, I guess earlier when you were talking, you said you could talk more about contact tracing, and somebody'd like to hear more about that. What do we mean when we say contact tracing?
Well, I mean, I could talk all about how, what happens when there's symptoms. I'm going to give you a little bit of information just to give you some context. So since we've started school back with the staff, in the first 5 days of us all being together, there were 5 staff members that had something happen that made them not be able to come to school. And for many of them, they end up getting tested as well. Now, no one's positive. None of the staff are positive. But, if you've already researched this, you know that when people start having symptoms that are consistent with COVID, they don't come to school. And if we tell them that they need to be tested to return, and most of them have already in the process of that, they are out for 14 days before they come back, unless they have a doctor that says the illness is not COVID related. And so, we will have kids or adults that are positive at some point. If we are all in a building together, that will happen. And so the next step is to say, and this is where it gets really confusing, because people want to say like, well, what if somebody's got COVID, they're positive, and then a sibling's in my child's studio? And right now, all of the guidelines are consistent that you're only affected with contact tracing if you are within 6 feet for 15 minutes with someone that is actually positive, not a secondary or a tertiary. It's only the primary. And so, there are processes in place that we will follow, where if we have a positive case, we communicate to our local health department and the state health department, and then we support them in contact tracing. So up at the cupola right now has kind of become an island. Just so you know, we love it up here. It's still our beautiful space, but no one really comes up here. So we're just keeping this space kind of just for the people that work in this space, because, once we have somebody that might be at the school that has symptoms that are consistent with COVID, they will go into the summit, which is a closed-in space, and we will give them love and care, and we will not treat them like a leopard. We will just treat them like humans, but they will stay in that space until you come to pick them up within 1 hour. And during that time, we'll also be filling out a form with the teaching staff or wherever they're located, if they're in just a studio or if they're also in extended learning. And we'll be contacting the people that have supported them through this day and find out if they who they've been within 6 feet for 15 minutes. And we'll start writing down all those people's names. And if it's if it's a Wednesday, we'll also write down if there are any different names for Tuesday or Monday. We'll probably go back a couple of days so we can start to get a list of that. So if that family goes home and test, and we find out a day or two later or 7 days later that they're positive, then we are ready to give the contact tracing, and we will communicate that, and you will most likely get a call from the Indiana State Department of Health. So they have a team of people. We will also be calling you, and we will not, of course, tell you who or anything like that. Everything will be very private and confidential to support everybody in this situation. But then we will say to you that your child has been identified as being within 6 feet of somebody for 15 minutes or more. Now, I will tell you that all of us are working towards not letting that happen. The younger the child, the more difficult that is. There will be children within 6 feet if they're on campus for 15 minutes. But, we are trying to put things in place to try to reduce that. And so that we know that that's something different that's happening, and they can make, physical or mental notes about it. But then that child will be quarantined from school if they've been in that space with another person that's tested positive, not if they're going home with symptoms, only if they test positive. And there will be questions about that, but it really is best to only focus on the positive, whether you believe or don't trust the test or do. Like that has to be the process, or else we might as well not be trying to go to school, because all we'll be doing is chasing a cough or a sneeze, or, like, we have to just stay consistent with that. But, just because they coughed once does not mean that we're sending them home. We're looking at the person as a whole, how they're feeling, all of the symptoms as well. And so that's how we'll do the contract tracing. The only way the only way they'll come back to school before that 14 days, so they go home for 14 days or on off-campus instruction, they can come back if they have a doctor's note that says it's not COVID related.
Okay. This is kind of a comment, and one current parent did try to answer for this parent, but I think it's worth you talking about. They're talking about, with all the new learning going on, especially in the early ed classroom, about how to even use this type of interaction. The child themselves is asking for more time to like do learning. I guess that child's referring to it as learning, as opposed to like songs and kind of work-based tasks. And she's saying, how can she help explain to her child that things will become more in-depth and longer periods of learning? Can you talk about how that might progress, maybe as we get more adjusted?
Did we say early ed child, or what was the age?
Yes, this is a kindergartner specifically.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so, right now, the biggest task that the early ed staff have is to try to start to build relationships with studios that have half of the children are new to the school. And so, studios are doing that a little differently. And sometimes they're working in groups of 4 or 5 at a time. So, their process for these first couple of weeks, like if they were in the studio, is to work on grace and courtesy. Right now we have all of this new stuff, which is just, I've spent time on the phone with families. I FaceTime with families and to help them with technology and so forth. And we have to realize that everybody's at a different starting place of that. So it will be different based on the studio. So I don't have any kind of time frame, and I don't think they would either. I think that if, your child feels like, maybe they're new to the school, or maybe they just are ready and they want something, just email those teachers specifically and say, give me some ideas of things I can do right now. So that's what I would recommend. Okay.
There's a question I just saw that distracted me, but I'm trying to get to ones up higher. Someone asks, these I think link, how are we handling kids with sensory issues as it relates to masks, when shoes and clothing can be a struggle even, so masks probably will be. And then also someone asked, what does a break from a mask look like once they're in the building?
Sure. So I think one thing to think about is, if I had a dime for every time a parent said, my child will not eat fruits and vegetables, and then they come into the studio and they eat fruits and vegetables, like, it happens because they're part of a community that's eating fruits and vegetables. So we encourage you to trust us in helping them to use the mask and to wear the masks. And lots of children from all kinds of variances are learning to do this right now in this building. So I know it is possible for most. And so we'll work with you, and if it will show them how to take a break, we'll let them wear it for a period of time. I will tell you that all of us, in the past week and a half have gotten used to wearing masks, and for almost the whole entire day. So I think it is real possible. I think what we have to do is not put on our own beliefs about it, or what we think our child is or isn't capable of. We just talk about what our child is capable of and allow us to kind of help you and partner with you and do the magic with this situation. I know that does not mean it's perfect for everybody, but we are saying right now that if a child's coming on campus, that we're asking that everyone wears a mask. So that might mean that it'll take a few days for a specific child, and we'll help them. We'll find a way to do that, because we're only going to have half the kiddos in our studios, which is the second part of that question. There's places, and so we're saying that they need to be 12 feet apart. Some studios have made spaces, like here's a space to take your mask off, here's a space, so that kids know that they can go in these spaces and kids don't go near those spaces so that they could just take a break. And so, I just would encourage you to think positively about it, and help us help you and your child to figure out the right pattern for them.
Also, if I could chime in specifically with regards to the sensory processing question, I think that's a great question. Mm-hmm. And I did comment some in the chat, but I also wanted to just share that I have several kiddos who are learners at the school as well. And my oldest is on the autism spectrum and has sensory processing disorder. And we just did a lot of practicing this summer, and we're fortunate in that there are a lot of types of masks out there. There's a wide variety of fabrics, loopholes, all of the above. And so getting several different types to practice with, and the one I thought would work for him did not work, and vice versa. And he was, he advocated strongly about this one hurts my ears, or this one's too close, or that fabric. So play around, try different things. And depending on the age level of the learner, there are lots of resources out there on how to help children with adjusting to masks. Additionally, there are lots of resources with how to help those with autism spectrum disorder or sensory challenges to adjust. And they suggest everything from playing with masks with toys or stuffed animals, trying it out, and helping them to engage with the mask before just feeling like it's this confusing thing that's on their face. So I recommend looking into some of those resources as well.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Hannigan.
Okay. We had some good feedback from people within the group here. I know there was a question I missed up here. Just give me just a second, guys. Sorry.
While Melissa is looking through that, because I know there were several comments and questions about the form to be able to change your learning option. While she's looking at that, I see another question that says, basically, can we guesstimate if we're going to continue to push back the start date for the various options, but in particular the family support program? And so I think there's some curiosity there on if this could continue to get postponed.
Yeah, I think, like I shared at the beginning, our positive 7-day average of positivity percentage was over 10% for several weeks, which is the reason why, and that we also, in both Clark and Floyd, and it was trending up. And so, over this past week, it started to trend down. We're hoping, that continues. The Indiana State Department of Health has a number on, let's see, the 4th was the date. So 10 days ago, I think they update theirs on Sunday or Monday. Floyd County updates theirs on Monday as well. So last week, Floyd County made their percentage at 8%, a little over 8%. And the state website 9.8. And so, they've both gone down from 10. So that's great. And I'm hopeful that those numbers on Monday will be looking. You can look at those numbers too. If those numbers go up or down, I will be having a conversation with our local health department to ask what's the demographics, what's the details about that. And so, I'm hopeful. Of course, I wish I could predict what's going to happen in our community. I wish I could. I can't. But I'm hopeful that we're going in the right direction. It appears the state mandate has helped with our county specifically, but we'll see what happens. So right now, I feel like it's a go to start a week from Monday with our family support program, and we'll see again on this coming Monday if things are continuing to trend or staying level. And I will probably be conferring with the reopening committee about all of that information. And if we're going to pull back again, we would let you know that probably by Tuesday or Wednesday. But right now, it feels like that's going to happen a week from Monday.
Okay. We had a parent, and I encourage them also to email you because it seems like a very specific concern. But they are saying that they hadn't received any assignments or lessons, and nothing had been posted in the Google Classroom. And I responded that that would be highly unusual, but I didn't know if you had a comment that that was happening maybe in some areas, or if that's something that they should email teachers about, or you.
They're always welcome. The first step is to email the teacher. They're always welcome to copy me. We work as a team, so that is all perfectly fine. I mean, I've looked at most of Google Classrooms. I have not noticed that, but I don't know what the context is of the question.
Right.
So
Yeah, we
feel
don't.
free to email me with the teachers. That would be absolutely fine.
Okay. Oh, somebody has had problems with connectivity, and they said, how can we help support our learners with technology problems?
So I'm guessing, I don't know if you're using one of our Chromebooks or if you're using something from home. If you're using one of our Chromebooks, I'd encourage you to email Glenn. You're always welcome to copy me to see if another Chromebook would be helpful. We purchased, I think, almost 200 Chromebooks this summer, and we magically got them, and they're out of stock almost everywhere in the nation right now. But we have noticed that maybe some processors aren't functioning well that we will be returning that might be affecting connectivity. So please feel free to reach out to us about that.
And yes, they said they were using Chromebooks. So there you go. That answers that question.
Yep. Great.
Somebody suggested Khan Academy, and Khan Academy kids are a good resource. I think a lot of studios at those appropriate age levels are using those as a resource as well. So I just wanted to mention that. Somebody asked, did we have suggestions for wearing masks and glasses?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and suggestions for drool masks that work well for drool, or if you have a drool issue.
Seems pretty specific, but just as far as the glasses go, I mean, many of us, like I have these that I wear sometimes, and most of the time, if you just put it above where your mask goes up, you don't have the fogging issue. I've noticed that this mask today is more foggy than the other masks I wear. I probably will not be wearing this mask again at school for that purpose. So, I would test around with different kinds of masks. I found the 100% cotton masks have less fogging, especially if they come up higher. So those are some of the things that I know. Hannigan, I know you have glasses. Do you want to share anything else with that?
Well, I just typed in that I have found that masks that have just a little bit of that flexible wire in the top make a huge difference, because I really get it on there and pinch it down below the little nose part, and that really helps. And as Barbara said, putting the glasses over the top of it has helped a lot. But if I don't have the wire in there, I'm a mess, because then it's just going all over the place.
Yeah, my daughter, who made masks, not this one specifically, but she bought these little wires, I think from Michael's, that have a little adhesive on the back, so you can put them on any mask at all. So
is it possible for people to still sign up for a Chromebook and get one if they did not before?
we are happy to support. It may not be right away, but we'll get to it as soon as we can. So just email Glenn, and he will help you do that.
Hannigan, can you drop Glenn's email in the chat? There were lots of answers about the masks, people giving each other feedback. So I'm getting back through some of that. Okay, some people, okay, so maybe there's one specific studio that is just having a little slow start and they're having trouble connecting, so having some technical difficulties. Parents are saying that they feel like it's going to improve. I'm not seeing questions right now, attendees, so if I missed a question or if you have a new one. Somebody did ask, the fleece neck gaiters are ineffective, but are thinner material acceptable to wear to school?
So, one of the studies, there's lots of different ways you can test a mask effectiveness. The masks that did the best were the cotton mask and the surgical masks. Surgical masks are very thin, but they're dense. And so you see the mask that Melissa has on, it's a thinner polyester mask. And so some of the staff are using those when not really working around others, or they're putting it over a surgical mask or some other mask as an additional piece of layer as well. So I think that I would look at those studies. I would look at what's, what kind of works for your child. But I think for sure, just the surgical mask seems to be also super effective.
There was a comment about looking for some like Montessori skills or materials that parents could print out. And I just said many studios are linking these in their classrooms, or to reach out specifically to teachers, because I think that's important to link with what the child is maybe going to be exposed to in the classroom. Would you agree?
Yep.
All right. Still waiting if there's questions we missed or things you feel like we haven't addressed. Or Barbara, I guess you can, if there's anything else you want to say while we're waiting.
I think I've just been so tickled about how well families and staff and all are communicating right now. So I think that's really helpful. When Melissa and I were looking what the numbers were for this meeting, I received many emails back from people from these other emails that felt like the information was helpful, and they were supportive of the goals for the school to try to support families and coming back in the best way possible. So I really appreciate the comments. And I've had some people ask some pretty tough questions, and I'm just as happy to have that too, because that helps us to reflect and think about, the decisions and the processes. And, I want you each to know that we are not doing anything on a whim. And so every decision that we're making is, intentional, thought through. I have a whole group of people that I'm, running things off of, school leaders from all over the state and nation and such. And so constantly looking at what's happening in other parts of the world that have been going to school for longer, or how they're doing, what they're doing, etc. So, as well as many of the staff and many of you. So we're getting a really broad perspective of what's happening right now. And at the same time, we still, no one really knows what's going to happen in the next 3 to 6 months, right? So we're going into it, hopeful and thoughtful, and we're also, we can change on a dime. And I think that's the best part of being a smaller school, is that, we have luxuries no one else does, like the doors that go to the outside. So we're really excited about all of that, so we can keep things as contained as possible. So I could talk all day, but yeah, I'm seeing some things pop up, so we'll see if there's some more questions.
Yeah, really what just popped up were thank yous to the staff, because the level of stress must be so high and everybody's just really plugging away, and that things are going better this year already than last spring. So thank you to that. Lots of agreements with that. And I guess since I'm still seeing lots of love and no more questions, I'll just mention I am modeling the mask that we'll offer to you, as well as the shirt. Can you see the back of my shirt? So you'll be getting an email from me about that, and we'd love to have you show some school spirit, even though we're a little bit apart. And we appreciate all of you guys so much. It's just great to have people talk to us and communicate with us, and we can fix things when we know, right?
Yeah, and I still appreciate people saying they can already tell there's a difference this year, because there is. And, even if there's been some technical difficulties in that specific studio or level or whatever, the staff is equipped with a whole different array of tools this year. But it's going to take a little bit to roll it all out. They've got to go through a process, and we want to help learners at the stage that they're in and slowly move into these other pieces. But I was watching a video lesson in one of the 6-9 studios yesterday, and I mean, my heart just was so full of these 6 and 7-year-olds saying, yes, I have a question, you know, and unmuting themselves. Like, just that process in itself is a lot for a 6 and 7-year-old. And so to watch them ask very pertinent questions and also go through this language lesson that they were getting, it was really, really beautiful. And I know, I mean, the staff is stressed, but they're also excited. I think it feels like it's a really good stress right now. You know, we're trying to find if there are bumps, you know, is it because of access points? We redid all the access points and the main system that carries all the internet through the building this year. So, but with that, there's always going to be some bumps from that as well. And I'm trying to understand if it's a device issue or if it's a Wi-Fi issue. So anyway, we've got all the different pieces that are happening, and it may take a few days. I was talking to Obviously County as well, and they said they've had a lot of bumps and they're working through those pieces too. But what a great way for us to practice this with just like 30 kids in the building. And so when we get to 110 in the building, I hope we'll be ready for that. And then when we get to 300 in the building, we'll be ready to go with that. So it kind of worked out well in hindsight. So
great. Well, it's really winding down over in the chat. People are just saying thank you and sharing a couple more resources. So I feel like we're about ready to wrap up.
All right. Well, thank you so much again for coming, and feel free, or we're just an email away. And thanks for being a part of this, and thanks for being supportive and asking the questions that help us be better every day. Have a great afternoon. Thanks so much. See you later. See you guys.